discover who you are. Eva Vennari, tell us more.
Yeah, discover who you are. You know, I heard this saying, and I think it was Joe Dispenza. He says, in order to become human in our human form, we had to drink the wine of forgetfulness.
Hmm.
And then
Yep.
we get our body, and we forget where we came from, who we are. So the
Hmm.
who we are is who we already are. Is who is
Yeah.
always, yeah.
And I'd argue with him about the before we get our body because the kids are coming in and not forgetting, and we're raising them differently, and we're not telling them they're crazy because
Yeah.
they can see things through the air or whatever.
That's a veil that has been lifted for them. And so they're coming in with a different dispensation, I like to
They're
say.
hanging
Yeah.
in there. I love it. It's so
Yeah.
cool. We're learning
Yeah.
so much from them. So
Yes.
cool. All right. So what comes up for you when you think about discover who you are?
Um,
Like how did you?
how did I? Just the process of I'm in pain, right? The tunnel vision we get when we're in pain and complaining, we tend to not notice what is outside of us very much other than our own,
Yeah.
you know,
That's where the
misery.
depression comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's contributes to it.
Oh, it
Just
does. Yeah.
on a little note with mineral balancing, copper toxicity is a huge load that can,
Huge.
yeah.
Yep. High copper, low zinc, and we need zinc for our immune system. So if your
Yes,
zinc's low, your copper's going to be high, man.
exactly. And a word of note, caution, do not go out and buy yourself a bunch of zinc and take it. Don't do that.
No, zinc picolinate is what I lean on for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So
balance.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
balance, and that's exactly, the minerals have to balance each other. So
Mm-hmm.
like when we're in that place of tunnel vision, we
Yeah.
almost, sorry, my light went off. We almost forget that there's others around us that need us, want us, that we can help, that we are a part of. And so
Yeah.
we lose that entirely. We
Yeah. We lose connection with ourselves
disconnection.
and others. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a person, this was my story. As I became more minerally strong and my
Yeah.
body was able to fight off the things that were causing or contributing to all of those things I mentioned, my focus could shift. And it shifted ever so slightly away from I'm in pain, I have problems, to oh my gosh, I have two children that I need to raise. What do you guys need?
Hello.
You know,
Right?
you put the bare minimum into it when you have no energy. I can remember a moment when I was on the couch. The girls were very little, and I was so chronically fatigued. I could
Yeah.
not get up off the couch to tuck them into bed. And I said, "Come here,
Absolutely.
give me a hug when you go to sleep. You have to tuck yourself in tonight. I can't move from here. I'm
Then you
tired."
crossed your fingers. For me, I had someone in my neighborhood walk up to me. I was on my back on the playground. My kids were on the swing set, and it was like, "Are you okay?" But I just like was paralyzed. I was just laying there resting. I thought that I was paralyzed. Like I wasn't going to get up until, I recovered from whatever I was going through at the moment because it was just, yeah, it's disabling for
It
sure.
is, yeah, such a good way and a good example of what it feels like. It is invisible in the way that you're not in a wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
it's not invisible energetically, and people can pick up on that. They're less likely to engage with you. They're less likely to do anything more than are you alive? Poke poke, they're not going to depend on you. You'll notice that your relationships suffer. So anyways, this was a reversal out of the quagmire. I'm focused on me because
Yeah.
that's my survival, to
Hmm.
oh my god, I actually have energy. I'm being a little bit afraid to use it because I want that energy for healing.
Yes. Absolutely. And then let's talk energy vampires. Let's not, right? You get rid of
Yeah.
the energy vampires because you can't deal with it, or hopefully you do. Okay, so you already are. So discover who you are. You already are. So
Yeah.
speak to that one.
Yeah, it's hidden inside of you if you are distracted, especially by your own body. And in any way, you could have emotional pain, you could have PTSD, you could have a mental condition like bipolar that is constantly distracting you, but it's underneath, it's there, it's underneath, it's ready to be discovered. And it's just a matter of getting whatever that I just mentioned, like all of those things, at least enough out of the way.
Yeah.
That filter isn't opaque. Now it is, at least you can see, oh, I can see through that. And there's more
Yeah.
underneath. So that you already are, it's there.
Yeah. And what are your preferences? You know, I had no idea that I had a genre of music I liked. I was like, I like all music. I did a lot of work in high-end coaching over that stuff because I was clueless. And then I picked out a bunch of music, and then I went, oh, okay. So I was picking things out by songs, and then it was like, oh, there are certain groups, and there's other groups of genres that didn't have any check marks. Like, got it. I do have a preference of genre, not just one genre, but not all genres, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
exercise.
personality. That's personality. That's something that develops once you're born, right? A lot of people, they can differ with me, and they can say, oh, you come in with personality as part of your human design. Human design DNA, that's different. It's a blueprint. Personality develops as soon as you take your first breath. You're starting that creation. What I'm talking about sits even underneath that.
Nice. Good to know. Very cool. Okay, remembrance.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
Remembrance is the process of, once you see that there's something underneath this thinning filter through which you see what you think is you, there's more.
Nice.
There's more, and you already do know. At some point, we stop being drunk and we remember our sober state. So to take, what Joe says in a little bit further, you drink the wine of forgetfulness and become drunk on a life of human nature, but you become sober once you are aware that there's more.
Yeah. And once you remember, you awaken, and then you never forget. You can't. The door closes. You go through that portal, man. Where the door doesn't just close, it disappears.
Yeah.
Love that spiritual awakening part.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful walk through yourself, where people talk about ego a lot, and I used to meditate a lot on this aspect of, you got to get your ego out of the way. And
you got to kill the ego, transcend the ego, get it out of the way. I got a good one for that, but keep talking.
Well, there's the negative ego, and then there's the positive ego, and the one that serves us more is the positive ego. And what we have, if I were to give it a technical term, our higher self, or that you already are person that's beyond this personality that's in your skin here.
Mm-hmm.
It knows who you are, and it's kind of a guiding light. If you think of like
like your intuition.
Yeah, on top of the mountain, it's there, you see it, and you're just going to walk towards it. And this is that journey, and along the way you get to have little pieces of remembrance. But I discovered this little internal conversation in a game I would have with myself. It's like, all right, if I took the Eva personality, and let's call that the ego, and I shrunk that a little bit and made it less important, and gave now that room to, who is Eva on a metaphysical plane? Who is this Eva that is the higher self? And allowed for that to come through. And I found a whole different set of wisdom within that, and say, all right, it's not, and that was a game I played, and I watched. Eva is still important. There's no need to push it out of the way entirely.
Yeah, because it's part of human.
Yeah, the human. Well, not only the human, but the thumbprint on which everything I do and touch is unique because of Eva.
Yeah. For me, when I heard about the whole ego transcend all that, I got to thinking, you know what? The ego is like a 9-year-old child. Like it's here to protect you. So it's gonna protect you. And so And just like a kid, if you don't listen, it's going to keep at you to the point where it's going to go over and recruit the pain body, which is like having access to all the libraries of all the memories to get you crying. And it's always like that younger sibling, it's going to go recruit the younger sibling. And so, what do you do if a 9-year-old child says, something to you? You're going to go, thank you, right? And honor, right, that child. And then you're going to, find the kernel of truth, sift through it, and then see if you need to do a little more thinking or research beyond it. And then what you kind of talk about that higher self soul. I always talk about like the fully embodied soul is, getting your divinity in you. So that's still like soul and human mixed together. And then that's the intuition. So yeah, I love it. It's so fun. Okay, expansion. What do you have to say about expansion?
Well, it kind of ties in with even paying attention to the shadow self, which you just spoke to, that the immature part of us that is our personality as we grow and there's change. And it's interesting what a good job our child shadow self, ego does to keep us on track, but it does it in a toxic way. it knows our worst fears, and it plays those in our head. So this is where that game of expansion really comes into play. And I've, rather than allowing for that shadow self to be a raging, let's keep it PG,
Why
a
not?
different voice to deal with. Yeah, very toxic in its nature, maybe even wild. I have learned how to talk to it so that it is harnessed and feels loved, and it calms down. And I go from, so here's a great example. I used to get into relationships with men who triggered my sense of not a neediness, but an insecurity that I had without being in a relationship.
Yeah.
So when I was not in a relationship, I was fine. As soon as I was in one, it was weird. It triggered some sort of thing. And this little shadow self would come up and go, he's going to leave you. He's not going to love you. He's going to cheat on you. He's going to do it.
Yeah.
And that was the shadow self telling me he's not trustworthy. Like there are things that red flags you're ignoring, you should probably pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so it was learning how to listen in a way that was not knee-jerk reaction, so that we just wanted to go drink more wine of forgetfulness, get high, go watch a movie, go out to a club, get drunk.
Find some dopamine.
You got it. Yeah. So anything that distracts you from actually dealing with the problem and making it go away, because guess what? As soon as you're sober, it's right there. So
I love it.
We had that pull, right? So for me, that was that pull in this toxic relationship. And I realized that my shadow self was talking to me. So in this expansive moment where we can go from just knowing that we're like being emotionally intelligent is one thing. You can know what you're feeling, but unless you know what to do with it, you're not being wise about it.
Ooh,
so
that's a good point.
Yeah. I know. I'm always like, hey, EQ has nothing to do with wisdom. So in this expansive place where the shadow self lives, where your ego lives, now take that, imagine it as a room, and you expand that footprint of the room, and you allow for something new in here. And what I like to do is just go into a conversation with my shadow self and go, look, my life is changing. I'm growing. I'm moving myself into new places of wisdom and understanding. And I can feel your kicking and screaming within. There's a conflict there. And I think you're thinking, I'm trying to kill you. And all of a sudden, the chatter stops. The need to be in that relationship stops. And then something new happens. And you allow for that conversation to plateau into a nice, almost like watercolors, where you put the water down and then you put the color in, and it just kind of saturates that little area of the watercolor.
Right.
This feeling of calm comes over the body, and I will tell it, and I've coached people through this, and they feel it too, is that sensation of, I cannot expand into this new being without having a foundation that includes you. I'm not leaving you behind. I'm bringing you, because you're the remembrance that I need in order to keep myself grounded.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you.
Yeah.